Hello, and welcome back to Dev Game Club, a weekly podcast in which two veteran game developers look at games from the past to discuss their relevance and impact today. I'm Brett Duville, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, a man who looks cool. Cooler than I thought he would, anyway.
Tim Longo. That is I, yes.
That is you. Be a man, would you?
Yeah.
Face up to your responsibilities.
Oh, that Ruta. She's a caution.
It's a bit much.
Well, I mean, we're talking about Ocarina, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, and we're on, our third session?
This is, yes.
Yeah, and I mean, we've talked about this, I think, in the previous episode, but just the overt theme of Link needing to become a man and all of the judgment that is coming with that. The masculinity cult, the masculinity culture, I guess that.
Yeah.
It's so
it undergirds a lot of the game. Yeah. I mean, there's also the one of the first characters you meet is that way. Like Mito, the guy who blocks the way to the Great Deku Tree, is the same thing. Oh, you're just some kid, you don't even have a shield and sword or whatever. And so there's this kind of definite thing there that's going on everywhere. But yeah.
And then also you're kind of, this is, I'm going to stretch this term, but your child self is fridged by the sages, not later, by saying, like, not only are you a kid and you need to become a man, but we're going to force it to happen.
Yes.
without you choosing to.
And we're not going to let you experience that time. So you're going to lose 7 years from your life. Mentally, you won't age because nothing will have happened to you, but you're just going to kind of be in it's basically big happens to this guy.
Yeah, big, yeah. Yeah, don't think too, we were just joking in pre-show, like we shouldn't think too hard about some of these things because, it's pretty dark.
Yep, and, pretty dark stuff. But maybe as a forced child, he never really would have grown that much mentally anyway. He's just always going to be a pixie of the forest.
I guess, but also traditionally they live a long time, so it's like they have
to remain
like
children,
elves.
or they'd never create anything. I don't know. I can't find my way through this morass.
Nope, just move on.
You cannot spend time thinking about it because
we did become a man though in this session, so all is no. Hopefully, no one will give us crap for it now. Now that we've grown up, we'll see. I guess.
I bet Ruta probably still will give us crap if we run into her. I can't remember a lot of dialogue and stuff like that, right? She'll have grown up and be like, hey, you look familiar. I'm sure that's going to happen a lot.
I believe that in Breath of the Wild that, because they, in this game and in this session, they allude to, she says, once you, I know we're bouncing all over the place timeline wise, but once you get the gem and at the end, right, she says, her father or somebody told her to only give this to the person that you are going to marry.
Oh, right.
Or something like that. It's like, okay, all right. So then there's that arranged marriage situation now too. I'm
not sure I buy that. I suspect that's just Ruta being Ruta, but,
oh, really? Maybe. Well, the reason I'm bringing it up is in Breath of the Wild, the history there is that they are a couple.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and
I didn't get
previous
that far.
Zversions of So I'll go into that a little bit later.
You will
lore dump section.
First, let's go to Zora, the Zora village, or domain. I had forgotten. I think I block out parts of this game because I like them less. And the whole Zora section might be my least favorite part of the game. There's a lot going on here that I find frustrating. Just the critical path stuff. It's very hard to. I went into this place and was like, I must have missed something, and I went back out. I went back to Hyrule Town or city or whatever. I went back to. I ran all over the field. I even went back to.
At what point? What? Sorry to interrupt, but what triggered you to think you missed something? You're in Zora's domain, and you're like,
right.
I'm not.
I
sure
went
what
up
to
to
do
talk
with
to the king. I went up to talk with the king, and he's sad and won't basically say anything. So I went down the tunnel to the left, and there's a dude there, and he's like, "Oh, well, if you want to play the diving game, it's 20 rupees." And I was like, "Oh, okay, so that's a mini game, so I'll ignore that."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it, because it presents just like all the mini games in Hyrule Town, I just immediately discounted it. Talked to every Zora I could find. I did the fire thing. I don't know if you found that.
I did. I did.
Okay. I did the fire thing, which was a pain to do. I had to try it multiple times, and it's like you have to do it really quick. And anyway.
So how did you do the fire thing though? If you don't mind me asking. So like what?
I just did it with a stick.
Yeah. Okay. So you didn't have the fire ability at that point, which I did. So
I did not yet.
So it was easier for me.
I only had the spin attack, I think.
Yeah. So I went back.
Remember. I could have done it with Din's Fire. That didn't occur to me, but I could have. I might have had Din's Fire, and I didn't think to.
You just didn't think. Okay. Yeah. So you could get the stick under the waterfall.
Yes. You just run alongside the wall.
Oh, I actually thought Din's Fire was required, because I was like, well, you clearly can't get the stick through the waterfall. So I lit the other two with the stick and then ran under and did Din's Fire under the waterfall to do the final two. So I thought that was required. But anyway, I just didn't see that you could do that. Cool. Well, that's neat. A couple different ways to do things. So keep going. So you were.
Yeah. So I mean, so then at that point I went all over creation. I went down to where Lake Hylia was on the map and was like, oh, I can't go through here. And of course it was turning to night, and like, and then I'd sing and turn it back to day, and like, but there's a fence blocking you. And I'm like, what is going on here? And then
so I didn't come from that direction. So I didn't know you couldn't go to Lake Hylia early. So
no, you can't. Yeah. It's blocked off. It's fenced off. It's not possible to get down there. And so I was, at a certain point, well, I'm just going to do all the things that I went into that room, and there's a fish. I'm like, maybe I have to give the, because I vaguely remember sort of critical path things, but I don't necessarily connect them to the specific action. So I was like, wasn't there a thing about a fish? Right. I'm like, but then I don't have nearly enough money to buy a fish. So I went and got some more sculptulas, and that got me a wallet that was worth, but it couldn't hold enough to buy a fish. I mean, it just kept going, of like, no, that's not it. Right. And just, and all because I didn't do the diving game. Then of course, as soon as I was like, well, let me do this. I haven't done this yet. You get given so much time to get the 6 gems or whatever it is on the bottom. I'm like, that was really easy. What's that about? Like, that was way easier than any of the other mini games are, in my recollection. So that's a thing, isn't it? And I went and talked to him. He was like, oh, here, have this diving thing. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I just ran around for an hour, because of the presentation of this critical path thing.
Yeah. I was surprised as well. And the funny thing about that in my case is I usually do what you're doing in games like this, and Zelda games specifically, is I save the mini games for much later in the game. But for whatever reason, this time when I'm playing through, I'm intentionally kind of trying to do some of that optional stuff and side stuff as I'm going. Like, just if I see it, I'll spend some time just kind of fooling with it. So this time I did it right away. But typically, if the traditional way that I play Zelda games, I would have done the same thing that you did. I would have been running all around, thinking it had something to do with a fish as well. But so I was surprised when I did that mini game and got the bracelet. I was like very surprised that was associated with that action, which is not good. It was not good. They've taught, and not only that, but they've taught you multiple times. I think I guess there was the mask in the village, right, where you have to go to it. Well, that actually wasn't a mini game. That was just a store to get the mask.
Yeah, you just go there and you buy it.
Yeah. So it's another inconsistency. There was one we talked about last session last episode that I don't remember, but there was, again, they broke their own rules sometimes. They break their own rules sometimes, and it's not great. Not great. So then you did find So did you see the little passageway under the water?
I did, and
yeah.
I can remember like that. There's, I mean, partly the game, having played this game before, sometimes hinders me.
Yeah, for sure.
Because
yeah.
I look at that and think, oh right, I need those. Don't I need those boots that you need for the water temple for that? Like, is my thought when I see underwater things like that. I mentioned that in the Lost Woods as well, right? That there's a spot, but maybe you just need to be able to dive. Further in the Lost Woods. I haven't had a chance to go back and do that, but I will make a note to try that next time I play. But
I mean,
it's like there's so much Zelda stew in my brain from years and years of playing these things that I'm sometimes seeing a thing and putting too much of what's in my head into the game and going, oh, it must be this, right? This other thing I've done before in Zelda games, which is a problem.
That's a funny, I mean, not a topic we had talked about, but now have inadvertently stumbled into. That's a funny concept because Zelda is one of those few franchises where, because of the structure that they have kept to and formula and like tone and similar mythological stories that are all very, again, very intentionally, very sort of in the same ballpark. If you played a lot of them over the years, you are going to mix stuff up. So I'm thinking about it from their perspective, from a developer's perspective. We usually talk about like, okay, especially in my case, because over my career, I've worked on usually in franchises that have had games come before.
Right.
So there's always that conversation of like, okay, we're going to introduce something, or we're going to do something similar to one of the previous games. How do you deal with the usability of that problem? Because that the fans of the game will know how this mechanic works because it's been in this game or two games or maybe all of the games. But then you want to bring new players in. So you're like, okay, so how do we, how
do we hint those people that
Because I mean, those are all over Halo specifically as an example, right? Because it's such an old franchise and there's these things that the players of Halo, even like not hardcore fans, but like medium core fans, know about how to do, like the way a certain weapon works or sort of how, but then a new player has no idea, so it's like, it's fascinating now to think about that with Zelda because there's so many sort of unspoken rules. This will support my lore dump even more when I get to it. But
when we get to that towards the end of the show, when my bladder needs a break and you can just go on and on about lore.
Okay. All right. It's not as fun if you're not there. But so I did take that little side path outside of the Zora's domain that does bring you to the Lost Woods. So did you do that, or did you go was that the pool in the Lost Woods that you were talking about you needed to dive more deeply into, or did you not go that way?
I have been that way in the Lost Woods.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I guess in the Lost Woods there is a pool. Does that take you to the Zora's domain?
So I went the other direction because the way you get from Zora's domain. Okay. So when you're standing outside of the waterfall, you have to play the song to kind of part the waterfall to get into Zora's domain.
Yes.
Right to the right of that, there's a.
Oh, that's what that is. Okay. Yeah. Right.
So if you go in there,
connects to the Lost Woods. Okay. So you can dive through that now. Okay.
Right.
All right. That makes sense. Yeah. Okay. So there's a lot of that shortcutting in the game. We mentioned how that's maybe why Dark Souls is kind of topologically similar to this game last time. But yeah, that's exactly the sort of thing I'm talking about. So for sure. I'd forgotten that that's what that was.
Even though they have the shortcuts, I haven't felt a need to go back, to be honest. Like I don't, especially to the Lost Woods. Like if I'm going to shortcut, I don't want to go through the Lost Woods because I don't know it well yet. But I don't know. It's nice that the shortcuts
maybe to get to the Forest Temple. Maybe I don't know why you'd want to do that. Maybe if you were going from Forest Temple to the Zora's domain. I don't know if there's a thing there. I don't remember. Yeah.
Well, they've been giving. I mean, they gave us a shortcut in
from the village, from the Goron village.
Goron village too, but other than what they told me, other than the critical path, I don't really feel a need to go. But anyway, it's kind of fun. It's cool that they're there, but I feel like the shortcuts often are like, you gotta get back to town so you can go buy stuff or something, But and there is a store there, but I don't in the forest. But anyway, it's just kind of like putting you in the shortcut. Being a part of a very confusing maze is not usually what you want to do for a shortcut. That's hey, true. Here's a shortcut. You're into a maze. Good luck. You better learn the maze, I guess.
I mean, or have a map typed out in your text file where you're keeping all the notes. I'm just saying.
That's fair. I just haven't put the time in. I could obviously, I know I can solve that by myself that way, but I haven't put the time in yet. I think that Lost Woods for me always mentally, I get to this place where I'm like, I'm not going to really deal with the Lost Woods until I have more tools. You know what I mean? Because I know that some things in there will require the tools, so I might as well just wait till I have more at my disposal. So that's why I don't do it early. But I don't even remember if that's the case. Maybe all the puzzles you don't need anything, any of the things you get. But anyway, so is there anything?
So we went to Lake Hylia. I mean, I found a couple of scarecrows. You did the fishing thing, which you should talk about because I didn't do that. I may do it at some point in the future. You want to explain what? Oh, right. There's a dude. Right. Yeah. I did go in there. I didn't do the thing. I was like, no, well, I'm on the main quest. At that point, I was like, let me just get past this. After I'd run all over creation for an hour and a half, I was like, I just want to get back to the main deal because I want to make sure I get it done. So,
well, the funny thing about the fishing for me is there was a point when I didn't think I couldn't remember how to get a fish if I didn't have the money, which I didn't have the money. So I was like, there's got to be another way to get a fish. Because I think I'm going to need a fish for the next step. And so I was like, oh, well, there's a place to go fishing. So I will go get a fish there. That must be. So I actually thought at a point, I thought I was going to fish for a critical path item, but you don't actually take the fish with you when you leave the fishing hut.
That's funny.
So I don't really know. I don't remember
it's like
fishing.
Real fishing. Catch and release.
Right, exactly. It's just for fun. So I don't remember doing much. I don't think I did much of the fishing in the past, if at all. And so I couldn't tell you what the purpose is other than teaching you how to fish. Do you get a fishing pole at some point that you can fish anywhere? Or is it just that hut? Well, I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, I can't remember.
So anyway, right now it's teaching you a fairly, not a bad fishing mechanic, to be honest, for a fishing game within a game. But essentially it's just a mini game. But there's quite a bit of like reeling and the other thing about it is that immediately, because I'm playing the way that so it'd be interesting to see what happens for you because you're playing on a GameCube a Wii. What are you playing?
Yeah, with a GameCube controller.
Wii with GameCube controller. So immediately when I start fishing,
it's a GameCube. There's basically, as Chris Hecker said, it's two GameCubes duct taped together. So he's just using one of them.
I knew you were going to say that before you said it. Anyway, his claim to fame, unfortunately, seems to be that poor guy.
Not a poor guy. Anyway.
Yeah. Fair. Okay. Fair enough.
He knew he was putting that foot in his mouth when he said it. So
yeah, he's good at that. So the first thing they say when they start telling you how to fish is, "Oh, I see you don't have the rumble pack." Okay, well then you're not going to be able to do some of the features in fishing. So then I'm like, oh, fishing was like a showcase for the new Rumble add-on or something. So you still technically can do it if you're just watching the visual signs, but I think the Rumble would be a lot more fun. But you're reeling stuff in, you're setting the hook, you're trying to pull the opposite direction of the fish, and also you're placing the fish, and you can stop when you do the cast. You halt the cast wherever so you cast, and then you can press another button to halt the cast, so it'll drop right where you want it to. So it's actually quite elaborate and kind of fun as a fishing mini game goes. But then again, I don't really know the purpose, so I did not get to take a fish with me, even though I had an empty bottle. So.
Side note, if we ever do another podcast, may I suggest we do it about fishing mechanics in games through the years? Just start at whatever the first one was, just do them all. We could call it
the whole podcast.
The Gamecast cast.
Okay. Great. Yeah, that sounds delightful. The game cast. Well, yeah, I'll tell you, I've done a lot of fishing in World of Warcraft, so
I know you have.
I for some reason fishing in games is intriguing to me. I always do like when people include it.
Oh, I did a ton of it when the first time I played World of Warcraft. I mean, I would just like sit there and just do it for like an hour, and just sit, because it was very meditative and slow. I also did all the fishing in like Okami. I think there was a whole like collection of fish or something that you could get for, just for bragging rights, I guess. Like, I don't even know. But I found all the fish in that game. I mean, I'm definitely, it's a thing I've always enjoyed. So I have thoughts, about fishing games. That's all I'm saying. If you ever want to do that cast.
Okay, good. Cast. Yeah, I'll think about that.
Anyway, so you have to get a fish.
Yeah, well, the one thing I wanted to be before the fish, though, I want to talk about the bottle. Only a little bit, because once you get the Lake Hylia, you find which again, another thing of sort of like there's a Zoran. What do they call themselves? Zorans?
Zora. Just a Zora. Yeah, they are Zoras. Yeah.
There is a Zora there in the lake when you go through the passageway, and they say something like, there's always strange stuff floating down the river to the lake.
Right.
And you're like, okay, thanks for telling me that. And then I just thought it was funny that bottle with the message in the bottle seems like it's easy to miss, and it's super critical, so you do pop up there, but isn't it just down below you?
Right.
Like,
but I found it like super perfectly placed. Like it drew my eye. Immediately, like there was like a little target on it, like that Navi goes to it, I think, right away. So I didn't miss it. It's funny.
Yeah.
I think I literally made a note, like they do a really good job, where you find this letter in a bottle, So.
I didn't miss it, but I guess I was just surprised that it was just a thing sitting in the middle of a lake or down in the bottom of a lake, So yeah. I guess they do telegraph it fine. And I'm wondering, probably a lot of people don't miss it, but I'm playing.
But for those who do,
well, that's what I mean. That's more of what I mean. I like the statistics are not bad, so it's fine. But for anyone who doesn't see it, or again, I'm playing on the original N64 on whatever 480, and it is very hard to see things in the world.
It's in fact less than 480. So
is it?
It's pretty, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's pretty rough.
It's not forgiving. So like if and there's also gems down there. So oftentimes underwater, I'll see some glimmer under there, but it's probably a gem. So I just, not only that, but later on they throw an even more, they make a big deal out of it. So you're going to go over there. But I guess I'm talking about the ocarina at the end, but of this session. But anyway, I just was surprised, I guess, that you basically have a key and you threw it in the lake, and it's like, well, I hope they find it. But anyway, yeah. So the point though is the bottle. You get a message in a bottle. In the bottle is a message that is from Ruta that says she's inside Jabu Jabu. And so the reason I want to bring this up is it's a really cool way to introduce through the critical path the concept of bottles, which are not, I believe, would not be new to Zelda, but obviously new to in a 3D sense. And the sort of, are they in Link to the Past? They are, right? I'm forgetting that because I might have gotten mixed up with A Link Between Worlds. But anyway, it's still critical. Assume you're a new player.
You are, by the way, 320 by 240 on a Nintendo 64.
Oh, geez. Holy cow. Yeah. So it shows. It definitely shows.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but then you obviously, then that was the critical piece Brett was missing to progress. And for myself as well, I wasn't sure what to do exactly. Once you show the letter to the king, then you have an empty bottle, and the empty bottle is required to actually get a fish. Even if I were to fish from where I was fishing, I didn't have an empty bottle, and so I couldn't, I did at the time, but hypothetically, so
There is a Zora that tells you that you can just scoop the fish, I think.
And I did find him later, but I guess I missed him at some point. And it's like, of course. I think he's actually in the store. He's the Zora in the store.
Oh, right, he is. Yes, that's why.
So then it dawned on me as like, oh, wait a second. Maybe
you need to have it. You need to have a ball. You need to have something to carry it in. I think they say something like that as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I did eventually put two and two together there. But for whatever reason, giving the note to the king, I guess I missed that I had to stand on that little platform below him to talk to him. Yeah, so I was actually stuck for a little while because you can walk right up to him and stand next to him. And I was like,
I did that the first time I played. I was like, why can't I do anything with this guy?
I must have to give him this letter.
And then this time when I was stuck before that point, when I didn't do the minigame, I was like, was this that thing where I had to be? And then I was like, did I have to be next to him? I mixed it up in my head. I was like, because I even did that. I was like, do I have to like shove him out of the way? Because I know I have to get behind him. You can tell that. I mean, you can see the light behind him, so it's obvious. But yeah, it's very There's a lot of places here you can get stuck. And the other thing too is like in the letter she's like, don't show this to my father. That's the other thing. Like, it directly goes against what you're supposed to do.
They're
which maybe that's supposed to be a lesson for kids. When people tell you don't tell your parents, then you should probably tell your parents.
Right. I'm sure they were trying to add some extra little storytelling there or something. But but it can be a misleading thing. But I just like the bottle progression there. And then the bottles end up. So I also had by that point. What I ended up doing, which kind of messed myself up a little bit too, is I had already gone to Lon Lon Ranch and done the milk minigame. So I had a bottle of milk. So when you drink that, you have an empty bottle. And so I already had an empty bottle before technically I had the note. So, I was reverse engineering this as if I had not done it in that order. But bottles end up being a critical thing. You can put a lot of things in bottles. And so assuming you didn't do the Lon Lon Ranch thing, I just liked how it kind of very economically introduced you to this concept of something that's actually a pretty multifaceted item that, but they did it through the critical path. So you had to do it. So, okay. I give the note. Now I have a bottle. Oh, now I have a bottle for the fish. Of course. Now I can do the fish. So it's kind of
right. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, no, it all kind of works. I mean, I do love that you from the note as well that she was feeding Jabu Jabu.
Yeah.
So you know what happened. Right? You know what happened to her. You know where she is as a result. And you also know that she had a bottle because she was feeding Jabu Jabu. So there you go. You got to put a fish in the bottle. There's a lot of sort of reinforcement of the critical path there, which is good, especially after all that being sidelined and having a hard time finding it for a while. It was nice to be like, okay, now I know exactly what to do. And I like that. I actually went and found the Great Fairy there. I think that was the second one because there's one at the top of the mountain. Might have been my third because I might have done the one by the castle before that as well. I can't remember what order I did them in, but you get 3 of the special abilities through the course of doing those things. I guess there's a total of 6. I just looked things up earlier. So it's I was just swimming around trying to see what else was there, just checking out the map. Couldn't remember if you had to go up. I think I actually went up there before I had the fish and sort of swam around him. And I was like, can I walk up on this log? Like, couldn't remember how to get in. And then I thought about it for a moment. I was like, all right, I probably need a fish. Got a fish, did it, got in. I like that scene as well. It's a little horrifying, like, oh, here's the fish, and then he sucks you in. It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's good and it's creepy. And again, very good evocative faces. I mean, his nose, for example, is literally 3 triangles. But they get a lot out of his expressiveness just through a couple minor texture changes, eyes and things like that. It's pretty well done.
I'm talking about Link.
Link in this case, yeah.
Yeah. Also, I mean, the king scooching over once you give him the note was
Yeah.
I'd totally forgotten about that. But it's like the king, I guess, the Goron king as well, like in his dance. But it's so
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Um,
It's so many scooches too.
yeah,
I'm
that's what I
watching this, I'm
mean.
like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, they're
Whoop,
like having
whoop,
fun. They're making a
whoop.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Uh,
Like, we made this animation. We're going to use it 15 times to move this fish.
yeah.
It's
So
really
so
silly.
you are not you I think we both have criticisms, but I think you're pretty critical of this dungeon. So now you're in the dungeon.
Yeah.
So how do you want to approach that?
I mean, it's sort of my least favorite. I think it is the most, well, it's not the most confusing. I'm not really as fussed by the water temple as other folks are, even though I know that one's really confusing as well. But what I don't like about this one is there's a lot of map areas that you can't get to, and the ways to get them are quite circuitous. But then the other thing is that you end up spending a lot of time once you finally get the boomerang. You spend a lot of time knocking down those tongue pieces,
Mm-hmm.
and usually you can see the effects of doing that quite soon. There's the third strand, I guess we'll call it electrified strand, that's in that main room with all the little holes that fall down to the next floor. By the time I had done those other ones, I had entirely forgotten that had been there. And it doesn't call it out again. It doesn't say, look, that's gone now, which is what they should do, with all of them, in my opinion, because I think it's very easy. It's very easy not to know what to do. I mean, there's a period of time where I had gone around with her and was carrying her because you need her for that section, which I also, using a woman literally as an object, not crazy about. But then there's parts where it's like, it looks like you should be able to throw her to the next area, and so there's just a lot of places where it looks like you have affordances you don't, and affordances that you end up having are highly invisible to you. Like, it's not obvious that they're there, because it's a subtle change. Like, I've gone back and forth through that room multiple times. I have ceased to even notice that electricity thing on the side. And so I just kind of run. I'm usually running across to the next room or whatever, and like, oh, I should be able to do a thing now. And I don't know. That is one thing I didn't. I just spent so much time running back and forth, going, what am I supposed to be doing? Like, and trying to throw her places and missing, and she falls into the water, and I'm like, great, now where is she? And I go, well, is she down here? And then I got to block that Deku seed again. I mean, it's just a billion little stuffs like that where I'm like, I don't know what to do. And it's because of that. And it's also not, it's so it feels a little bit rule breaky in that maybe all of these things kind of are, but it feels like it's in a room that doesn't that resets. And so like those things shouldn't be connected in some way. Like, I don't know. That might
you
be
mean with the green,
with
tentacle.
the green one. The green, the third tentacle.
No,
I didn't even connect the color changes at the time. Like, it had been so long since that green one had registered to me.
Yeah.
I didn't even connect that it was, I just didn't even realize. I just had no idea what I was doing wrong. And then I was like, I'll drop down all these holes, but I don't think that's a thing. And then I found the one hole that was different. I was like, oh, dang it. I'm so mad.
Yeah, right. Because you had already dealt with the green. You just didn't remember that.
I didn't remember it had been there.
Yeah,
right?
no. I think you're making an excellent point on just the time differential being the big problem. Like, that's for dungeon design in Zelda specifically. Like, that time difference is critical. If you're not visually seeing the change happen, the time is critical. And the flow of this one. Is the flow of this the linear flow of this dungeon is very odd, and there's multiple times when I felt like it just wasn't thought through in the same way. An example being in the room that's right before that, which has the big elevator that you usually are coming up, right? There's that one, which I think you're probably alluding to, that one alcove that is the passageway toward the boss. there's the floor button there that I assume you probably threw her over there.
I was throwing her, trying to get her there.
Yeah.
And it looks like you should be able to, right? I mean, it's like, oh, I just missed. Maybe I didn't throw her from the top of the arc of the elevator.
Totally. No,
like
totally.
I must have done it half a dozen times.
It's just close enough, right?
Yep.
That you think that it's possible. And to be honest, I'm not sure why that's visible there. Like, it felt like they were trying to give you, like, it seems like it's more, that's an example to me of an example.
Put a door there.
Yeah, it's more confusing.
Make it clear that there's nothing I can do with her. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because you need that ledge to fall into place to be able to even get there. And that
right. And there's no indication that ledge is going to fall into place or where it's going to come from. It actually comes from above instead of below. While in a previous dungeon, they had a elevator that goes up higher when you progress, right? So you get a sense that elevators can do that. So this is sort of like a Deus Ex Machina moment. And then in that particular case of that button, it wasn't even Ruta that you needed to use to press the button.
Right.
It was a new thing. It was a new thing that they
a new thing you've been smashing all along.
Yeah.
Just as you go through that room every time. Like, maybe this will have a heart in it this time. Nope. Okay. Which is maybe a clue. I don't know that thing ever had those boxes ever. There's some crates in that room that ever, I don't know that they ever had anything in them.
I can't remember.
But
I mean, I smash them every time. And we of course know we can pick things up like jars and stuff, vases, but it didn't immediately occur to me. I mean, obviously I'm in the room. She's not with me. I kind of like, well, I only have so many things around me that I can probably do, interact with. Oh, there's those crates. I guess I could go try the crates, but yeah, I don't know. There were just, it is an oddly flowing dungeon. Some of it for me too was landmarking, to be honest. Like, the art style of it, again in this era, this late 90s era, another level that is inside or very fleshy based. It's like we hit this with Tomb Raider, we hit this, like, I feel like this has happened in so many games.
System Shock 2, Thief sort of has it's not really fleshy, it's more plant, I guess.
But yeah, I don't know.
It's a thing.
It's a thing. So
it's like, oh, we have texture now. Let's make something organic.
Yeah.
That's pretty much how things went.
Yeah. I mean, the concept of being in a big fish, or kind of the Pinocchio kind of feel to it is definitely neat.
Right. But I mean, Kingdom Hearts is another one, right? Of course.
Oh, right. Kingdom Hearts. Yeah, of course. That's a good. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Kingdom Hearts. That's right. There was the whole.
Because you're in the whale.
Oh man. What year was that again? Do you remember?
That was 2001, I think. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think it was 2001.
Yeah. So anyway, not my favorite. And then we get to a mini boss before the main boss that was harder than the main boss for me, with that I even forget what they called him.
I don't know what it's called either. Yeah.
The big Deku nut
Deku looking thing
guy that's going in a circle around a platform with spikes on it. Yeah, and you kind of have to hit him in the butt. But I couldn't quite figure out, let's see, what did I end up doing? I think what I ended up doing is using the Deku nuts to sort of like reset him so he would
to
go
stop him so he'd turn around. That's what I did. Yeah. I used my sword, but yeah, I basically would time hitting him with the sword to stop him, and then he'd reset. Sometimes he wouldn't turn around every time, so sometimes I'd have to hit him again. I think usually I had to hit him again, and then I would hit him again, getting away from me, but now he'd be frozen, and I'd hit him with the...
Oh, how funny. So I didn't even realize, I guess I never tried it, or I assumed it wouldn't work. I didn't know the sword would work.
Yeah, it's tough timing. I got knocked down a lot, but even if you get knocked down, he turns around, so it's like sometimes you can get up quickly enough. And
so I made it probably harder on myself than I needed to, because I was using the boomerang to do it, and so you have to like get to the right angle, you have to chase him, and then it's just I had a lot of trouble.
I use the boomerang maybe sometimes too, actually, to stun him, just with Z targeting. So he'd get close and I'd Z target him and I'd whack him with the boomerang, and then he might turn around or might not, and then I'd hit him with the sword as he ran away, etc. So yeah, it was or as he was turned around. So yeah, it was a little tricky, and those spikes certainly don't help. Like they also feel unnecessary.
It felt like a difficulty spike that
Yeah.
wasn't necessary, you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of new mechanics thrown in for a mini boss, which also was kind of a sort of a new thing. Was there a mini boss in the Goron? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. No.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't call anything in there a mini
But
boss.
the main
This one
boss
felt like that a lot. I mean, you had all those like tongue or whatever those things were, but the tentacle ends. Right? I mean, those are like, you know, there's 3 of those that you got to fight. I mean, it all feels a little.
Yeah, that's true.
There's a lot of that in this dungeon. Too much, honestly. I mean, it's a lot. So.
But then the main boss I killed the first time.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
in trouble with that one. So it's kind of funny and pretty elaborate boss, to be honest. Like multiple states, and then each of the states were kind of behaved differently. It felt like, but I just kind of like Z targeted and boomeranged, you know, and like it didn't seem too difficult.
Just warm down. Yeah, I didn't feel like that was that hard at all. I mean, I would stun him and then just run up and hit him a lot with the sword, because that was I think faster. But yeah, and there's a bunch of vases in there as well, so you can replenish health while you're figuring him out. I mean, it felt pretty. And the one thing is that he's got a bunch of tentacles that you have to get first. That's the first state. Like there's 4 tentacles. I don't remember if they go up to the ceiling of the area or what, but or if they're just kind of like
on the ceiling with them, and then he comes down.
Yeah, right. That sounds right. Yeah,
having the Lon milk definitely is a nice thing. I don't know if you have interest, but doing that thing might be beneficial because you get 2 swigs of milk from a bottle, and each swig gives you 5 hearts replenishment.
So cool. Yeah, I had gone there, but I didn't do the milking minigame. So I did get Epona's song, but I didn't get the milk minigame. I didn't get
Epona's song. What? How did I not do that? No, I did the chicken thing is where you get ironically, the milk thing. You have to do
throwing the cuckoos into the...
You have to... No, you go into one of the rooms and...
identifying picking up the special one, the 3 special ones. Yeah, 3 special cuckoos. Okay. I was wondering what I missed. No, I did that once and didn't get it. I was like, I'll come back to this. So that's what happened there. Yeah, I'll go back and do that. I mean, I'll do all this stuff at some point. Often I would do things and I'd be like, that wasn't fun enough to do again. So
yeah, I know, and that's the same for me.
That's
too.
Another thing about that gem mini game. Like, can you imagine if you failed it?
I did fail it.
Did you?
Yeah, I did fail it once.
So now you got to go spend another 20 rupees or whatever to do it again, and I mean, it feels expensive after a while. And like, if you kept failing it,
I don't think the camera for things underwater is generally never been very good, you know. So you're kind of trying to, especially on a 320 by whatever
240
screen. So I'm kind of like trying to see if I can see the shadow, which I think they want you to do, like see his shadow. But the way the camera is angled, the shadow is right at the edge of the screen. So it's actually pretty difficult for me to. And I'm not sitting like right next to the TV, so I'm sitting a little bit back, so it's not ideal to know when to dive to get to what, and it's finicky swimming. When you swim to kind of reposition yourself over something you want to dive for, he doesn't stop on a dime. Like he still swims a little bit more, you know. So you kind of have to like finagle it. So
I definitely remember having to do it multiple times last time I played, and for whatever reason, those skills have stuck because I did it the first try. But last time I remember like being like you were like, are you kidding me? Really? Mm-hmm. I think I had even played it on the GameCube attached to an old CRT at that point. So it was, kind of not as crisp. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm not the best. Yeah, I'm not the best. I mean, then she takes you both outside, and she gives you the gem, of course, and talks about marriage, and which turns
She's
out
a princess. She gets what she wants.
Yeah, I guess so. Does turn out to be the case in Breath of the Wild canon. So maybe that's in other ones too that I haven't played, but maybe that's just an ongoing theme. with Link and Ruta. And then what happened? Let's see. You go. So there's the ferry. We both did the ferry to get the teleport thing.
Right, for Rory's Wind. The only other thing before we get to Ganondorf and your lore bomb, let's quickly talk about the Skulltulas as a little side point, because that was a side track that I did for a while. I got myself 4 pieces of heart so that I could get another heart before I got into here, and then I did the. I knew. I had a sense it was probably 10 to get the first thing. I had mentioned that last time, that I thought it was something like that. So I ran around. I couldn't get the one in the graveyard, although I did do the graveyard thing this time.
You said you had the song to...
Yep, the Sun Song. I almost made the introduction about that. A man who knows the secret melody of the Composer Brothers. But you need the boomerang, I think, to get the Skulltula So I couldn't get that one, but I did manage to find enough running around. There were some there was at least one in the Hyrule Castle area, because it does turn to night there, and I happened to find it, so I got that one. I can't remember where else I found it, but I managed to get at least 10, I mean, like a dozen, and then went and turned that in. And one of the things I really like about that little hut is that it literalizes the mechanic by making a character who is a spider, and then you turn back into a boy. And it also delivers, you made a really good point, a really cogent point before in pre-show, that this game doesn't have experience points, so typical ways that you could upgrade things are not available to you, because there's no, and this is how you start to get some upgrades. And in this case, it's the adult wallet, which lets you hold 200 rupees, which is still not enough to buy a fish, I don't think. Maybe a fish. There's maybe something in town you can't buy with it.
I think the fish is 200, but
maybe, That there was something I saw that was for 300. I was like, well, there's another one of these, but I did really like that you could sort of, by doing that. So when I handed in my 10 tokens, he said talk to the one that's restored or whatever, and I turned left, as it turns out. And I went across any number of spiders who had not changed back. In fact, I thought, he'll change back when I talk to him, but then none of them did. So I went all the way around and got to the one that it was immediately to my right when I turned them in.
Right.
And so I basically got a count of how many there were, which is 5 or 6. And went, okay, well, now I have a good sense of how often I'll be able to turn in Skulltula tokens. Probably
right.
20 or 30, probably at 50, definitely at 100, probably in the 70 or 80 range. So I have a much better sense of that. And it was all just because that was all literalized in one place. Having tokens that you're collecting that are literal items that you're finding in the world, that come from spiders, that you're fighting in the world. And then this thing where these kids change, instead of like everything comes from this one spider that's hanging, which wouldn't make any sense. Where is he carrying all this stuff he's giving you? Like, it's just a really nice, simple way to do that. They think through all of these things, I guess, is my point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's associating characters with the collectibles, and the meaning of the collectibles as well, so that's also a nice touch. Zelda has sort of notoriously always been that anti-RPG RPG, it's like, it's not really an RPG, but it has elements of it. It's not really fully an action adventure, because there are ways that you upgrade and things like that. And it's just such a funny franchise, because it's such a mixture of things, but also it's just its own thing. It's itself, and everyone else has been riffing off of it more than anything else. But and then, I think we mentioned this last time, but the korok seeds in Breath of the Wild being a modern version of that, right? Where there's a lot more of them. And there is a point when the collectibles cease to have a meaning, because you've upgraded everything you need to by using them. But at least the korok seeds are something that does get you upgrades that makes it feel RPG-like. But it's just associated with that simple mechanic. And they also are associated with characters that add some flavor to not only finding them themselves, because the little koroks pop out and they have a funny thing to say, but then also the guy you give them to is a memorable, goofy, funny guy.
Yeah, I remember him.
So
kind of a fop, as I recall.
Yeah, he's got maracas.
Oh, the maracas,
yeah,
that's right.
And just delightful dance that he does. So, and inventory is a big deal in that game, so it's associated with a thing that is super important to your enjoyment. So it's rather than just picking up collectibles for the sake of picking up collectibles, they're crossing those systems over slightly, which is kind of nice. They're just great at that. They've always been good at that. So this is a good early precursor to all of that, I would say. The other thing that I didn't mention that somebody must have told me, and now I'm forgetting who because I didn't read it anywhere, is when you must have been the owl, maybe it was just Navi. When you find all the sculptulas in a certain area on the map screen of that area, if you go select that area on the map, there will be a sculptula symbol next to the name.
Oh,
and that tells you found all of them.
You found them all there.
Yeah.
So you'll know you haven't in all the other places, basically.
Right.
Nice. Yeah. That's
good.
That's good.
I don't remember who told me that, but yeah. So it's interesting.
The other, it's one of those things I've always appreciated in games is that in order to get these upgrades, you're basically doing the core things in the game, right? You're doing combat, you're aiming to shoot these sculptures, you're climbing to get to the sculptures and all that stuff. And I've always appreciated games that find the way to incorporate the sort of core verbs of the game into the collection mechanics. That's often the case actually with platformers, obviously, because you have to do the skills, right? But here it's the sort of verbs that he has. It's sort of like that's another good example that I like. Far Cry 2 has all these guard posts. Those are your upgrades in that game, primarily. There are some other things, but primarily it's like, if you want to have a place to rest and store stuff, and I think there's some other systems it ties into, you have to capture these points. So you're doing the critical verb of that game, which is shoot a bunch of guys to capture a part of the map. And I always appreciate that. I like that too about Assassin's Creed and climbing towers to get maps of spaces and things like that. So there's, even though there's a lot of additional collection in those games, which is not as well motivated, I do like it when it is motivated like that. So anyway, that's a thing, I think we have Zelda to thank for to some degree, is doing those things really, really well. So,
yeah.
All right, that's that little side note. Let's then progress the story. We go back to town with our three stones, I guess, and we get basically our dream made flesh, right? Our nightmare made reality. Why don't you go ahead and describe that? I've been talking about.
What are you referring to there?
At the beginning of the game, when you wake up, you're waking up from a dream where you see somebody riding across the drawbridge. Oh yeah, right. Sorry, yeah, I totally forgot that would happen. Yeah, so you see, you approach the castle and it might be night. It starts raining as well, so there's storms happening. You see lightning and stuff, which is it's pretty a neat scene. And then the drawbridge comes down, and then you see a horse coming out with two riders. Zelda is in front, and then Sheikah is or Sheik, maybe they just call Sheik them Sheik. Anyway, she's a member of the Sheikah clan. So she says, and so she's taking basically Zelda away to save her. Isn't it Impa? No, it's Impa is somebody else. Impa is from the from Kakariko village. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Also, I believe there's a reveal about who Sheik actually is later.
that
I believe
that is a surprise, which I won't.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, there's statute of limitations is over, but anyway, Sheikah is like, obviously in Breath of the Wild, like Sheikah as a whole, that's like their kind of ancient civilization, not ancient civilization, but kind of, yeah, I guess that's their, I don't know, Protoss or whatever you want to say. But yeah, so Zelda's being sort of carried away, trying to escape essentially. And then Ganondorf comes out on his big, cool horse and stops and, basically Link is seeing all this in child form. And, I don't remember exactly what he says, but he threatens you and says, "Oh, you want a piece of," he literally says, you want a piece of me," which I thought was funny. And then he kind of blasts Link. But then as Sheik and Zelda are going away, for whatever reason, they throw something into the water of the moat that you very visibly see and probably can't miss, but you definitely technically don't have to go pick it up. I don't know. Well, can you get into the castle without it? I think you could leave it there. I wonder what happens if you leave it there.
That's a good question. I don't know.
Turns out
it probably won't.
Well, you can't progress. You can't go to the temple and do your thing you need to do there. But
right, I think that's true. Yeah,
so
yeah. I think you need that to do to do the temple.
Yeah,
to play the royal lullaby song there.
Yeah, so funny. But anyway, yeah, it turns out that they threw the Ocarina of Time, the royal version of it, in the moat. So you see that scene finally happen in real time, and then Ganondorf blasts you, and then I think you wake up and he's gone. I don't remember what happens exactly, but yeah. So you go get the ocarina and you go in.
I mean, he basically says, "You're a kid. You'd have to take. You're no man to take me on, or something. You're not man enough, or whatever.
Right,
something like that."
Yeah.
More language along those lines.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you go inside. I feel like somebody kind of tells you or reminds you that you need to go to the Temple of Time. Maybe it's just Navi and Saria or somebody. Yeah, and then you go inside there and you play the Zelda song, right? I think it's just the lullaby or whatever.
Yep.
And it triggers you, now that you have 3 gems, you put them inside and you open up the sacred realm, I think is what's happening there.
Yeah, there's a kind of a trippy sequence at that point where you get all this blue light, and it sort of calls back to the cutscene earlier with the 3 fairies.
Mm-hmm.
And you're in the sacred realm at that point. As an adult, I guess it takes a little while. Not yet. Not until after. Yeah. All right. So first, and you talk to Rauru, the ancient sage.
Rauru, and then the thing is like, again, I want to remind us that the previous, other than the Game Boy version of Link's Awakening, the previous Zelda that everyone had played will have been Link to the Past, in which the sages were also a thing. Right. That was true. That was sort of the core group that you were going to help or whatever.
Right.
And so you immediately see them again, or you see at least their chamber and Raru's there. And I don't, he talks about the sages, needing to find the sages, although I guess that's after you come back. That's after you're grown up maybe. But another significant thing happens there, in that Ganondorf, once you go into the sacred realm, I don't remember the order of operations, but he comes into view and says, ha ha ha, you did exactly what I wanted you to do. You opened up the gate for me so I can get the Triforce. And so there's sort of alluded to, you opened it up so he could get in, because he knew you would, the hero of time or whatever would find the gems and play the music. So, that old chestnut of the hero accidentally letting
exactly what you wanted.
Yeah. Which, those are always funny, because how does that work? If it's all destiny bound anyway, like, which in my lore dump you're about to see, it's not as clear as that. Then it's like, well, then he was supposed to let him in, and so he could defeat him later. Like, how does that? Anyway, it always makes my brain hurt. But what else happens there?
If we spend all this time, we'll be, taking out straws and lining them up on the table. There's a little looper throw out there for anybody who's into that.
Yeah. And then,
it's after all of that, and I think I don't remember what order this happens. Like, I guess that happens later. But then basically you go back to the entrance to the Sacred Realm, and that's when you learn that Link has been aged and not experienced any of that aging. So he's been in sort of a weird stasis where his body grows. Somebody, I guess, cuts his hair and clips his nails, feeds him through a tube or something. I don't even really want to think about how any of that works. But he becomes adult Link. It's a good reveal of him, right? Because he sort of, the camera's like looking up where his head would be, and then his head, it sort of pans down to show that he's adult Link. And gamers,
it's well shot. So. It's definitely cool. And but Rauru says something like, we aged you because you weren't ready as a child to defeat Ganon or whatever, Ganondorf.
Right.
And so,
meanwhile, Ganondorf has taken over the world. So
yeah,
that's a problem you're gonna have to deal with.
It's all mythological legend stuff, which is intentionally the case for the franchise, and it makes sense in that regard. But if you think too much about it, you're like, well, wait a second, what? Why would you let this? I'm confused. So yeah, don't think too hard about it.
Like the other sages can't hear your call because Ganondorf has the power now. But why didn't you just call them before he got the power?
yeah.
There's a lot of questions like that are a little silly. And he tells you the locations of the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 sages and he's one of them. So there's 5 additional temples. So he basically says, here's what you're going to do for the next section. You've done chapter 1 of the game. Here in chapter 2, you're going to do these 5 things.
And he or somebody tells you where, is it Sari? No, it's Navi. I feel like somebody, oh no, Sheik shows up. That's what the final thing happens. She shows up and says the same thing. You need to help, and she actually says where each of them are.
Deep forest, atop a high mountain, under a vast lake, in the house of the dead, and inside the goddess of the sand. I think I don't know if I got
something
right.
About sand. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that you need to go to the forest temple first. That's the sage is someone you know. Hint, hint.
Yeah.
So
right. Yeah.
It's all pretty good. I like all of that stuff. But yeah,
and despite some of the logical stuff, the cool thing just about now having, and there's a little bit of this in Link to the Past because of the sort of dual world thing going on there. There's that. Now this cool realization that you're grown up, 7 years have passed, and now you're going to go back out into the world. And so now I'm excited. I wanted to keep playing. I stopped, but I wanted to keep playing because you're excited to go out and see what has changed. Sure. And I planted one seed as well, and so you're like, oh, I can go see how that seed grew and what happens now. And in Zora's domain is where I planted that one. But
oh, me too. Right next to the kid who sells you the seed.
Yeah. I did have enough to buy a second seed, but I didn't plant it. So I should have, now in retrospect, done that. But yeah. So
a lot of that stuff. Yeah. So now it's time to go into the deep lore.
Okay. I'll make it fairly quick.
Okay.
Fairly so. So
I'm getting my straws.
The one thing, the thing that triggered this for me was, I mean, obviously people who listen to the podcast know that I'm a big lore nut in general, especially in games. But Zelda was always a unique case for me because I didn't feel like it needed lore, nor should it have lore. And I don't think I'm alone in that it's intended to be, the myth, the legend. And every time you play it, it's sort of a retelling, if you will, around the campfire or what have you, of the myth. And so it can be different, and there doesn't have to be a continuity or a canon to it that kind of threads everything together. because that gives them freedom to do whatever they want to with each one of them. And I always thought that was kind of a brilliant side of the franchise. And I was kind of free to come to Zelda and not worry about the lore like I do with other franchises. I was like, I don't have to, but I decided to look up.
And since you couldn't play more, you decided instead.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the thing is like, I don't know the reasoning, and there's the answers out there, I'm sure, that they felt compelled to connect everything, but they did. Right before Breath of the Wild came out, they came out with a series of books that was sort of like the Zelda Encyclopedia, the Zelda History, and sort of art and artifacts and stuff. And so there's these really nice books that came out that kind of puts all this stuff together, which ironically came out right before the year before Breath of the Wild, I think, and then Breath of the Wild kind of rewrites it all anyway, in a weird way. And so but the reason that I got triggered is it kind of dawned on me that Ganondorf, like throughout many of the games, right, there's various different villains, but Ganon as a monstrous villain is like, that's the archetype for the Zelda games. But in this game, it's Ganondorf, and he's a person, it's a humanoid, he's the king. And part of the story that we're unraveling now with playing the game is that he gets the power to become, you're trying to stop him from becoming the king of evil, the king of monsters. So it's kind of dawned on me. It's like, wait a second. So who is Ganondorf? Like, is he Ganon? Is he, why is he called Ganondorf? How is he the king? And so I went to look him up, and that's what led me to my deep hole. And so very quickly, which it never occurred to me or didn't dawn on me to even ask this question, Ocarina of Time is an origin story for Ganon, the monster boss. Because Ganondorf is who turns into Ganon because of Ocarina of Time. And so I looked up the timeline. And so the funny thing about it is that, which a lot of the fans out there already know, but I did not know. And for the fans who don't know, Ocarina of Time is sort of like the fork in the road for the way that it all works. And so there's only a few games that took place before Ocarina of Time in their timeline. That would be Skyward Sword, which is a prequel apparently, Minish Cap, and Four Swords. That's it. Otherwise, Ocarina of Time is like the inciting event for the whole series. Because what they ended up doing to justify how all of the other Legend of Zelda games work is they created 3 timelines past that. So each game can fit on one of these timelines based on how Ocarina of Time ends. So if the hero is defeated, there's a whole timeline that includes A Link to the Past, Link's Awakening, Link Between Worlds, and Legend of Zelda and Adventures of Link. So if in this game, Ocarina of Time, the hero fails, those games exist. I'm talking Legend of Zelda, the original, because you're fighting Ganon, right? Ganon has become an evil monster, and he's the boss. Do you see what I mean?
I see what you mean.
If you are the child on the child timeline and you stop Ganondorf, then you have Twilight Princess, Four Swords, Majora's Mask. If you're on the adult timeline and Ganon is sealed away, you have Wind Waker, Spirit Tracks, Phantom Hourglass. So I just couldn't believe that they created. I'm sure this wasn't the plan originally, that this was all the case. They probably just kind of created this in retcon this through, and they wanted to find a way. But if you read the timeline that's in this encyclopedia, it does all make sense. Generally, they figured a way for it to work. But then the funny thing about this all is that Breath of the Wild, their official new statement, which I found for Breath of the Wild, is that Breath of the Wild technically can take place at the end of any of those timelines. So they basically, I think, it feels like they've realized, wait a second, we've kind of boxed ourselves in with this weird Ocarina of Time, offshoot of these 3 different alternate, histories. So with Breath of the Wild, and it'll eventually box Breath of the Wild in. So why don't we just say Breath of the Wild is sort of the culmination of all of these, and so we can kind of reset. They're basically rebooting. So that's my long story. And Ganondorf, this is not an origin story for Link. This is an origin story for Ganon, which I thought was pretty neat.
No, that's pretty good. I appreciate that. I don't want to research it myself, but I'm glad you did so.
Well, I also just love the fact that like each of the games can be placed on one of these weird timelines. And I think it's very interesting that they chose, to me at least, it's interesting that Ocarina of Time is the game that creates the fracture. You know what I mean?
Right. So Ganon isn't in Skyward Sword then, is what you're telling me. Or Ganondorf is, possibly. I guess, right?
Ganondorf.
But not Ganon.
Yeah, they actually, what do they say? They said something about that. Let me look real quick. They say that is the emergence and sealing of the Demon King. Goddess Hylia reborn. So the Goddess Hylia is reborn as Zelda. Master Sword is forged. Oh, that must be why the Skyward Sword is called Skyward Sword, because that's when the Master forged. So it's a prequel. Yeah, so the Demon King, who I guess Ganondorf utilizes to become
Ganon.
Yeah, must be what it is. And then I guess the Four Sword, we've played some of that stuff, is all a whole nother...
Homer's got nothing on this.
Yeah, really, seriously. It's so funny. But Ganondorf, King of Scene, enters the sacred realm and the Triforce splits. That's what happens in Ocarina of Time. Ganondorf transforms into Ganon, the Demon King. Yep. Anyway, There you go.
I will have forgotten that about 5 minutes after we finish recording the cast, but I appreciate that there are others who will get a lot out of that.
Well, here's another fun thing to think about.
Okay.
If you, I know, this last thing I'll say. If you think about the fractured timeline,
quote unquote fun.
It's fun for me. If you think about the fractured timeline from Ocarina of Time splitting off, there are timelines there where the original Legend of Zelda and Link to the Past do not exist. I just think that's so hilarious. Anyway, long story short, I actually wish they hadn't done this. As much of a lore fan as I am.
That I can agree with.
Yeah,
I liked it better as Fireside Tales, like where they all have to have common elements, but they're mixed up in different ways. And
that there is this sort of vague...
That's a poetic thing to me, instead of
right. Yeah,
I hate things where everything's explained. I don't need to know about the Kessel Run. No, I'm not going to see that movie. I knew everything I needed to know about it from the original Star Wars. Anyway,
right, yeah, and I just it just was the kind of the concept that these were epic poems and that it was just a different storyteller, was telling them in a way. This is kind of how you kind of justified them to yourself, at least before this crazy timeline. So maybe they'll just disavow all this stuff now, because I think Breath of the Wild specifically has in a way sort of rebooted and reset up the history in such a way where they could return to that because of the way that game opens and the way that it resolves and how they talk about the hero of time and all this sort of stuff. And it's kind of neat to have this, because it's a lot more vague in that game, and they don't get too, although the Age of Calamity thing is out now too, so maybe they have more details there. But at the end of the day, I'm sure fans will always want more of those, so they'll probably just return to this problem later. All right, well, that's it. Let's move on.
Let's move on to feedback. We didn't talk about this pre-show. I was thinking we basically have two ways we could go here. We could play one or two dungeons next.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. I feel like two feels
better, because one feels like, even though the game does open up and there's a lot of stuff to do, I do feel like if we did them one at a time, that's 8 episodes. So it feels like we need to do 2 at a time at this point, two of the temples where the sages are at this point. So I believe that will be the forest and the mountain. So we'll be returning to places we've been now in the future, or the one possible future, I guess, is what I'm hearing. From you.
No. So, Ocarina of happens, just to be clear. The fracturing happens at the end.
I understand.
Yeah, okay. All right.
just doing a bit here, my friend.
Okay. No, we're talking about serious.
You do not have to explain my bits. They're just not, you don't have to, draw a diagram to explain how my bits work. Well, that sounded wrong.
I do if I want to. I do if I want to subvert them, though.
Oh, here we go. Okay, so we have some feedback. I wanted to say we did actually get a review this time. Thanks so much. It's a short one. So I'm going to let Tim read that, but I appreciate that it was in the podcast app. So I did see it. Go ahead and hit me with that. It's appropriate that you read it.
It's maybe my favorite review I think we've ever gotten, and super hilarious. It's from Future Tarzan, Future_Tarzan.
Or John Carter, I believe that is.
Oh, okay. Fair point. Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. The subject is great podcast. The body of the review is waiting for the Death Stranding episode. No period. So yeah, that's awesome. I
just got to get rained on, I guess. Right? Some kind of rain that's going to age me or something like that.
I still haven't finished. I need to get back to that. It overwhelms me to think about going back to it because I'm excited to still, and it's definitely scratching my Metal Gear, itches. But yep, I am also waiting for that. I mean, that would be 10, 20 years from now.
It'll be a while from now. Well, my thinking is, I still have to play Ground Zeroes and Phantom Pain or V.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a
it's
very good.
It'll be a
game.
while before I get to it. So
yeah, that's right, because you just played 4. So
correct. I just played 4 less earlier this year or late last year.
Well, I mean, you should probably play Peace Walker, and
that's not going to happen.
Oh,
it's not available. So
yeah, it is. Yeah, you can get it on. You can get it on the PS. It might have just been PS3, but they did a collection, a HD collection, where they remastered it. They did an HD version where you can play on the console, basically, without the PSP. So
maybe someday.
It's the only Metal Gear game you can play co-op.
I did not know that,
and it's very cool. Yeah.
Well, maybe that's what we need to do.
Yeah.
We just need to be there long enough for us to play it. All right, I have another short email, and then we have a long one that also appropriate given how much lore bomb stuff you did that you read. This was sent to devgameclub@gmail.com from our friend Johnny Pockets. He says, "Good day, gentlemen. I was happy to hear you're going to play Ocarina of Time. I was discussing it with a friend and was introduced to the following article. Note, link in the show notes, that I thought you might be interested in. The headline is Ocarina of Time beaten by blind gamer. There's also an interview with the gamer. He did it over a period of 5 years. And apparently he's not the only blind gamer to do this. Astounding. So there's actually 3 separate links about blind gamers and Ocarina of Time. Wow. Anyway, best pockets. Yeah, so you look for those in the show notes. I do remember hearing about this at the time and being like, that's astonishing.
Yeah.
On the one hand, that's astonishing. And then on the other hand, thinking, it's sad that that's astonishing.
Yeah.
That there's not more support, basically, for people who have different limitations on how they can experience games. But
right, yeah. Did this come up on the podcast before? But as a shout out to that, for progressing our medium forward. But Left 4 Dead 2. Did I mention this to you or
no? I don't think so.
Left 4 Dead 2 literally has in its, because its usability options are so astounding. They have a mode that is for blind people to play the game through.
I've never heard that before, so that's new to me. Yeah.
So they have gone above and beyond what anyone has done. I think I would say really before, and Sony's first party games tend to do a pretty good job at that anyway.
They do, yeah.
So their accessibility options are quite good. I haven't looked into it to see what it's actually doing, but they do have a you can play without vision mode for the whole game.
I mean, I will say that just generally speaking, we have made a lot of strides in this in the last decade for sure. And you mentioned Sony first party. I'll also call out your former employer, Microsoft, because they did that amazing controller. Valve has been really good at supporting, on the PC, sort of different rendering modes for people with different, and they're not the only ones, because again, Sony first party does a lot of that as well, with sort of filters for people with different kinds of color blindness, for example, or different ways to aid the hearing impaired in the case of subtitles, although a lot of companies could do better by making those fonts sizable, for example. There are a lot of people who have vision problems who could really benefit from that as well, or are just getting older. In my case, I'll be selfish about that. Like, come on, Assassin's Creed games, I cannot read your 8-point font on my TV that's 12 feet away or whatever, etc. But yeah, I mean, it is a thing that we've generally done better, but it is still astonishing to think of a game from 1998 be beatable. But I guess it would be one that has so much audio, that's so well done audio wise as Ocarina is. I will read these articles. I feel like I read about this at the time, but I wouldn't mind rereading it to think about how he did it. So yeah, that's cool. Yes. So you have the other one, sir.
Okay. We have the subject is a superficial comparison to Age of Calamity. Interesting. From Noah Filter. Hello, Brett and Tim. It's me, Irreverent Q, from the old stream chats. Hi, Irreverent, of course. I'm not currently playing along with Ocarina of Time, though I'm very familiar with it from past playthroughs on pretty much every re-release. But I did just play through the new musou game. I don't know that term. I guess that's sort of relating to...
I guess that's what the Dynasty Warriors style of games is called, yeah.
Hyrule Warriors, Age of Calamity. Even though the combat and progression systems are quite different, I was struck by how they reinterpret a few Zelda series mainstays in interesting ways. Here's a quick roundup of what I noticed. Narrative. In classic Hero's Journey fashion, Link starts off as a nobody and gains recognition as a prophetic figure through his deeds. He gathers a diverse group of champions/advisors to help power up his assault on Ganon's forces. Spoilers for the opening. Skip if you want to. I guess I won't. It's the opening. It'll be okay. The importance of music is evident as early as the first cutscene when the character plays a song to open the portal to the past. Ooh, neat. Time travel is alive and well in Age of Calamity and a vital boon for the good guys. Cool. Mechanics. There are an abundance of side quests, some of which give very good rewards that you can complete at your leisure. Z-targeting is selectively employed. You can only lock on to big enemies, i.e. moblins, but not bokoblins. I always have a hard time with that one. But allows for some fun one-on-one showdowns. There is no jump button, though in certain contexts, when you are next to a wall, you can jump. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I'm very intrigued by what this game is all about, not having played any of those the Dynasty Warriors games before, but loving Breath of the Wild. I've heard it's a must-play for Breath of the Wild fans. Exploration. Tools like bombs and other Breath of the Wild Sheik Slate ruins are multi-purpose. They're used for dealing damage, exposing weak points on enemies, and discovering secrets out in the field. Koroks, who give you collectible seeds, are also hidden throughout the stages. You choose where you want to go and can return to old areas whenever you want. I actually struggled a bit making this list. With some of the examples, it's difficult to say if the influence came directly from Zelda or prolificated back to Age of Calamity through unrelated games. Either way, it's fascinating to think about how profoundly Ocarina of Time changed the entire gaming landscape. Thanks as always for the wonderful cast. Even when you're not covering a Zelda game, it's a great link to the past. Nice.
From Nolan.
From Nolan Filter. Yep. Did I say Noah earlier? I might have. Nolan Filter.
No, I think you said Nolan. Okay. Yes, he is a person whose parents named him No Filter. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Irreverent. Nice to see you. Sorry I haven't been on the stream. Yeah, it's not a game I'll probably get around to. I, after all, have not finished Breath of the Wild, although I'm now even more sort of interested in playing Skyward Sword, which is the other one that I haven't played. I guess I have never finished Majora's Mask either, as we talked about last time. So I have a few lying around here waiting to be played. That might happen in the near future, maybe over the sort of New Year, Christmas break. I'll dig into one of those and spend a little more time. But
as long as you finish the Kingdom Hearts, then I approve. But you better do that first.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Anyway, thank you for the reviews and the email. Reviews, of course, we love to get through the podcast app, and email at devgameclub@gmail.com. Our website, where you can find the show notes, as well as collections of people we've interviewed or the books I've recommended for different series and what have you, at devgameclub.com. And of course, you can find us on Twitter at devgameclub, where you can also find my co-host at
Tim Longo Jr. with the JR at the end.
Our intro and outro music was written and performed by Kirk Hamilton and commissioned by friend of the cast, Aaron Evers. Have fun exploring your newly adult body this week, and good night.
Good night. Really?
Yep. Could not help myself.